Film the hotel. Film the hotel.
Oh, film the Well, hello there, family. It's 3:45 on Wednesday, May 20th, 1987, and if I'm not mistaken, this is probably the family's very first video letter. And I remember sitting with Aaron as a young boy in Baltimore, watching him do what I think was the very first letter tape on an audio tape. And back then it was a little portable reel-to-reel recorder that you had given him just when we went up to TA together. Let me just check to make sure I'm pretty good to me. I just adjusted the frame up a little bit. Anyway, I was in Bradenton Monday and Tuesday. Today is Wednesday. I returned on a flight this morning, got in around 9, went directly from the airport to the attorney's office. I met with Mark Cooper, and Mark explained where we stand at this point. There really are two separate issues. One issue is one issue has to do obviously with terminating the lease, and the other has to do with back rent owed. Let's talk about the back rent owed. We were allowed 4 months free rent. That would be November, December, January, and February. We owed them rent for March and we paid it. We owed them rent for April, we did not pay it. We owe them rent for May, we did not pay it. So through the end of this month, we owe them 2 months of rent. One of those months of rent I have it set aside in a savings account. If push came to shove, I'd have it to give them. The other month of rent I don't have. On the other hand, they have a security deposit equal to a month's rent, so we could cover ourselves and pay up through the end of May. Mark says, don't pay up. Mark says, don't throw good money after bad. The other issue has to do with getting out of the lease. The lease reads, the landlord shall at all times during the term of this lease have the sole and exclusive control of the automobile parking areas, driveways, entrances, etc., and may at any time and from time to time during the term restrain any use or occupancy thereof, except as authorized by the rules and regulations for the use of such areas established by the landlord from time to time. The rights of tenant in and to the common area shall at all times be subject to the rights of the landlord and the other tenants of the landlord in the shopping center to use the same in common with the tenant, and the tenant shall keep areas free and clear of any obstructions, etc. Next it says the tenant and its employees shall park their vehicles only in those portions of the parking areas as are from time to time designated for that purpose by the landlord. The landlord has so designated the areas behind the building as being for employee parking. Tenant shall furnish the landlord with a list of its and its employees' vehicle license numbers within 15 days after taking possession of the demised premises, and tenant shall thereafter notify landlord of any change in such list within 5 days of any such change. So I have never yet been asked by the landlord to supply a list of license plate numbers for all of the employees of our company, and I assume they have never asked anyone else either. It doesn't say that they have to, it says that they can. Again, it says the landlord, the tenant shall furnish the landlord. It doesn't say anything about the landlord asking for it. The tenant agrees to assume responsibility for compliance by its employees with the parking provisions contained herein. The tenant further agrees that upon the second notice by the landlord or its representatives that if any of the tenants or the employees shall have parked their vehicles in a portion of the parking area not so designated as employee parking areas, then in that event, the landlord shall have the power to require the tenant to pay the landlord the sum of $10 per day for each day the violation should continue. On a given weekend, there are at least 150 violations out there, which means they could make $1,500 a week just charging $10 to each person that's violating. There are 150 cars illegally parked out front by employees of the big restaurants, TGI Fridays and El Torritos. But this doesn't say that the landlord has an obligation to enforce it. It says these are the laws. These are the regulations that all tenants shall abide by. What we added, see if I can find it here. The clause that I had added, clauses that I think are providing comfort to us in terms of breaking the lease. The first of those it would be related to the parking. Landlord warrants, wait a second. Landlord designates the parking, this is my wording, the landlord designates the parking spaces located behind the shopping center to be for employee parking and shall require all tenants of the shopping center to park their employee vehicles in the so designated spaces in compliance with paragraph 7C3, which is the one I read to you earlier. In the event that and this is it, in the event that employee parking violations regarding this paragraph materially impair the conduct of the tenant's business, the tenant shall have the option to terminate this lease, provided, however, such option can be exercised by tenant only after written notice to landlord of such employee violations, and upon the landlord's willful failure to enforce the rules and regulations contained in this lease applicable to the employee parking. Such option shall be further subject to tenants providing landlord with written evidence of such material impairment of tenant's business. For this point in this argument with the owner, we wrote a letter that went out. I don't even think I filed it yet. I just wrote a letter last week on the 9th. It says, Dear Mrs. Owens, we have not had the pleasure of meeting one another, but I have received a letter from a Mark Isidore of your office indicating that you are the property manager for Village Shops. Thus I am writing to you. As you may have been informed by others, the physical condition of this property leaves much to be desired. As I look out my window today, I see a pillar of water shooting out of a broken sprinkler, a splashing spectacle that has been drenching customers for over a week now. The landscaped areas are cluttered with weeds, and the parking lot is littered with beer bottles and other miscellaneous papers. I'll comment here that my intent, Mark instructed me to write the letter. On the one hand, I had to say some things rather legally, which are in the next paragraph, and yet I didn't want it to come across too strongly because I really didn't want their attention drawn to this letter. We wanted this letter filed with them and shy, and just leave it there. So that's what I'm kind of detracting from what I'm about to write by talking about little stuff like water squirting up in the next paragraph and the last paragraph. The parking lot is also packed with employee vehicles of every tenant in the plaza. In particular, the two major restaurants have allowed their employees to park in the main area, thus forcing the plaza's customers to park out in the streets. And while this parking problem is affecting all of the smaller tenants, I am only concerned with my business, and in that respect the employee violations of the parking regulations are having a material impact, and not a good one, on our business. The owner's lack of intervention seems to be a willful failure to enforce the very parking regulations provided in the lease. I trust that something will be done. Sincerely. And that was the end of it. So I got in all the legal words that he wanted, put in there. Now that was dated May 9th, which is a Saturday, but in fact I mailed it Monday the 11th. 10 days is what Mark says we need to wait, and that would be tomorrow. So hearing nothing by tomorrow, they have had their 10 days, which gives us what Mark feels is the strength to then write them a letter when we are safely out of this store here. Write them a letter saying, we are hereby exercising our right under paragraph 52 to terminate the lease without recourse. for the reasons given in previous correspondence, but repeated here, and then we'll itemize again what our complaints are, and for the record let them know that in our minds this lease is now null and void. And of course we expect that they will respond very aggressively and write back saying we don't interpret it that way, you ask the full balance of the lease, etc., etc. And then the move will be theirs to pursue it if they choose to pursue it. If everything is physically out of here, they can't physically touch anything, then it just becomes a paper argument or one through attorneys, and I don't know what the extent of the cost will be for that, and whether they will rationalize in their minds that it's worth the fight or not. That's what we really don't know. What we do want to do, though, is shut off the costs. This place is costing an awful lot, and we want to turn off the overhead. We also want to physically get everything out of here before the owner chooses to take dramatic action. There are other things that he can do. Mark explained it to me. Even though, in terms of rights, they have, oh yeah, legally, alright, here's a contract between two parties, and we each have our interpretation of it. Our interpretation is they violated this contract and it's no longer enforceable, in which case we owe them no further monies on it. Notice I'm not talking about the past 2 months of rent that are still due them, but anything from this point after we move out. They will of course argue that we are obligated to the full term of the lease, which is 3 years, and that they haven't violated anything. Now that dispute may go on in court and may be dropped by them because they realize that they have more to lose than to gain. But that whole issue is second to an earlier option that they have. As landlord, they have the right to seize or throw a lien against assets to secure or offset what they feel are potential losses. They could go to a judge and get an injunction against us moving anything physically out of here. If we move quickly before he gets it in his head that we're really serious, the injunction won't happen because there will be nothing here for him to injunction against. If, barring the injunction, the next option he would have is to send us a note saying that we are hereby giving you 72 hours to evict the property. And then if you stay beyond 72 hours, he can come padlock the doors. So that's the situation. It is Wednesday, late afternoon. Mark said it would be prudent to move out of here Sunday. Actually, he said it would be prudent to move out of here immediately at night. I asked him if he meant in the next 12, 24 hours or something that dramatic. He said not necessarily that fast. But he said, time works against you because it just does. And you'll feel a lot safer and sleep better once you know this stuff is out of here. And I guess at this point that's the way it is. It's probably past the point of saying I really wish we could still make this work somehow. Sunday is a better day because if someone were to spot us and they wanted to get an injunction, they'd have the most difficult time on a Sunday finding a judge, where they might on a weekday for sure, or on a Saturday even possibly. Night's better because less people see you. I find night's going to be very awkward, frankly. So I think at this point I'm looking at Sunday because there are a number of things that have to be arranged for. Truck, storage spaces, people to help move all this, where it's all going to go. And also, in the back of my mind, I was really, really hoping that I could find a little store that I could move the rental material inventory to and be able to tell my customers, just move over to this other place and pick up your movies there and keep it going. Because once we shut the doors and they come back and the place is closed temporarily and whatever the sign says on the door, I think we're going to lose our customers, or a significant number of them, and they're probably getting tired of that. We've been cutting our hours back. As you know, we used to open at 10 in the morning, and later we opened at 11 in the morning. Now we open at 4:30 in the afternoon because there's no business during the day anyway, as you can see behind me. There's no business here. So that's kind of the situation. Now Mark was sick Thursday and Friday of last week, so the paperwork didn't get out. It is going out in today's mail to Tallahassee, copies of which I have for you and will accompany this tape. Those are to go in your files. They are the promissory note for $75,000, as well as security agreement, which gives you the option to repossess everything in here against notes unpaid, and we have defaulted in our payment, so you have right of repossession, and that's what you would want to do before this hotshot over here tries taking anything. So that's how it legally becomes yours, rather than us selling it to you for $1 or something like that. It's really already you taking it back as collateral. Well, so much on the legalese of things. It's pretty sad. It really is sad. But hey, what can you do? You know, I'm still reminded of putting my finger on wet finish on a piece of furniture, and you just grab the lacquer thinner and wipe it off. I mean, what else can you do? You just wipe it off and get started again. I keep looking because I think there are people over there trying to get in. They're not. What I want to do next, I think, is sit down this evening and really strategize what's going to happen in the next 3 days. Probably by the time you get this, it'll all be over with. I understand that Steve might be into Tampa tomorrow, and then he might be out here. I don't know what his schedule is. He hasn't pinned himself down to anything, so I'm not going to worry about it. If he's here, he's here. I got a call from one of the 2 pizza places that I was hoping to put these movies in, and he's having, you're going to laugh, he's having problems with the city of Altamonte and signage, and he's just around the corner up he's down a block from where Mel and Stewart's old office is on Douglas, right around the corner from us here. He bought the pizza business from another company, another fellow, and there was a sign. It looked like that, like the letter, almost like a T, but off-centered, and it said Jimbo's Pizza, and it was on that little section of grass between the curb, you know, at the road and the sidewalk, and it said Jimbo's Pizza, and I think it crossed at the I. That's probably what it was, Jimbo's Pizza. And someone knocked it over with their car or storm or whatever, and he innocently went ahead and ordered another one made and spent $3,500 getting it made, and then he put it up, and the city told him to take it down. And he said, well, but there was one here before, and they said, well, the one that was there before was before the ordinance, and that the new ordinances don't allow for signage for a single tenant of a multi-tenant facility. And he's in a row of stores. There's 8 stores. Now, he's in an older strip center that has 8 stores. The other 7 are vacant. 2 of them are boarded up with plywood because the owner hasn't maintained it. Sounds similar? He's the only tenant in there, and this is not this is a very big owner, the landlord. He owns the Ramada Inn. He owns a number of properties up and down that street. He owns a tremendous amount of land. But they're letting that building go to pieces, and I understand why. They're thinking of actually raising the buildings and then putting something in its place. So here he was. He went to the owner, the landlord, and said, I want to put a sign up on the building. The city will allow that. And they said, we don't allow signage on the buildings. I don't understand these people. They don't want the tenants to succeed. They are not interested in that. They have their other reasons, whatever they be. Certainly their objective, one of them, is not to help the tenant succeed. So he called me now to say he was super excited about putting the movies in, and he still thinks it would work very, very well. But in honesty, he had to let me know that he might be renting a truck and moving out in a week's time. I had to laugh. I said, yeah, I know. I was going to move my stuff to your warehouse, because he had a half a store empty in the back. Anyway, that's the way it is. Altamonte is a very, very difficult place. It's a lesson learned. At least when I looked across the street, I found that I could put up trailer signs and other such things. I did check it with the city. The bad news over there came today. There are 4 stores available. 3 of them have been filled. The fourth one is 2,000 feet. That's as big as this place is, and I really don't need that. Or 1,600 feet, so that would make it about 2/3 of this, but I don't need that much. And I guess I could go in there for the time being, but it's not laid out right, and it needs some work on it. It really does need some work. There's walls that are busted up that need to be either torn down altogether, and then you got flooring problems where the walls were, or you do some drywalling and taping and all that kind of. I don't want to get into that anymore. The one I really wanted was the one on the end. It was a small little 1,300 square foot. It would have been perfect. It was set up like a doctor's office. It would have been perfect. And you're not going to believe it. The one that he thinks is going to take it is United Telephone, and they want it for a switching station. There's not even going to be a person working there. It's just going to be this little gray box blinking away. Transfers a lot of the calls through the Altamonte Exchange. That's it. And for that, they're using a store. I said, can't they use one of the others, not the end one? The end one is so priceless to a retailer with good visibility and the whole works. It's so frustrating. There's still a chance that it'll fall through, but who knows? Oh, hang on a minute. I want to hide here. So I guess what I'm going to do then is take all these tapes home, and pack them in the room. If I can find a store in the next week, priority one is get the heck out of here real quickly. Once I'm out of here, that takes care of this issue, and it may go on paper and letters. Mark will write the next letter to them informing them that we've terminated the lease per the lease terms, and hopefully if it comes from an attorney, they'll just say, hey, can't argue that one too much and leave it alone. Maybe we should be so lucky. But at least that's just an argument at that point. Monetarily, they can't get anything from us, and they aren't going to get anything from us, and that's the end of that, unless they go fight it in court. If they really start fighting it in court and it looks like a big battle, then I'll default the company altogether, just bankrupt it. Because I don't have the money to fight the battle anyway. And that's probably what they'd try first. Let's not theorize on that. The next thing is, after I'm out of here, I'd like to try to find a place to put the store, at least so I can maintain 70% of my members are over in that Wymore area. If I can find a place to rent to them out of Wymore, I don't want to throw away those members. They're good members, and we've built up that business, and it's a shame to lose it. It's a revenue generator. It's still good for $2,000 a month, and I don't think that should be thrown away. And it's a way of recouping some of the costs rather than putting all these in boxes and leaving them in the house. There are other things that I'm thinking of doing, but quite frankly, when you don't have a lot of energy, and at times like this, when you're not on a roll, and things are maybe on a roll in the wrong direction, it's a little hard to find within you that pizzazz to go out there and try doing it all. Each time I come up with this idea that sounds great, I don't believe them anymore. I used to, but I don't really believe them too much anymore. I'm not. This is not crying in soup. It's not saying, hey, I've really messed this thing up, so I don't believe myself. It's not that. I'm just saying it does tend to temper each time you have a flash of excitement inside, and excitement doesn't develop itself the way you thought it would. Each time it doesn't develop itself, you begin to realize you're not very good at guessing or calculating what will and won't work. And that's the way we do it. There are other ideas. I think some of these other ideas could be very, very good. I think the movies and the pizzas would do well. I think movies and the hotels will do well. But what I think doesn't matter. Whether it will or not does matter, and that I can only tell by going ahead and doing it. I haven't checked. Why don't I call right now over to Residence Inn, and let's find out. I've had a machine over there now since Friday afternoon. And keep in mind, I put it there Friday and was out of town Monday. Steven, that was real easy. And it hasn't rented one time. And the reason why he feels it hasn't rented is, first of all, I only have one machine over there. And I put in 14 tapes. But there wasn't a place to display it, and they've got a nice looking lobby, and it's kind of a sunken lobby with some lounge type seating around there, and there's some built-in bookcases with old sets of encyclopedias that are more there for looks, with the leather, the old broken up leather. And I just put stood the tapes up, not in book form side by side, but kind of stood them where the faces were out, but it's in a dark corner, so he kind of feels like nobody even realizes it's there, and there is a sign right on the counter, but in 3 days that he probably hasn't had that many people check in or check out. So I wouldn't draw conclusions. I really wouldn't draw conclusions on it. It would be nice to have heard that it rented every day, but it doesn't really tell me much either way. Ramada is very excited. I left Friday afternoon from there. We went to lunch, and they're real excited to get started. They're really, I mean, they talk about it at board meetings. They're super ready to go. They're going to be putting it into the gift shop, and we're going to put some sales items in there as well. It's just waiting for me to get to it, and I've been with the accountant and the attorney all day. You know how that is. And I will get to it, but right now I won't get to it this week. Priority this week is get this place out of here. I just would hate to go work on Ramada and risk losing all of this. So, priorities are clear. Patty had an idea I mentioned to you about me doing videotaping of construction projects. Actually, her idea was a little different than what it's turning out to be. Her idea was, why don't you take your experience in construction, combine it with the video camera, and go out to the construction sites and film what you see as potential problems, and then put those tapes away. And one day, I mean, 9 out of 10 projects go to court or get into lawsuits. One day, 18 months, 12 months, 10 months away, you start bringing these tapes out of a box and hand them out to attorneys saying, hey guys, take a look at this. And all of a sudden, here's a sound, color, three-dimensional depiction of the way things were, and they're trying to glean all of that from correspondence and snapshots. And what is that worth to them? It could be worth thousands of dollars instead of the $4 it cost for the blank tape. I got to thinking about that some. That's pretty neat. But I said, well, why sell it or wait? Month to month, contractors every month on your major projects, the construction company pays for photographs. They usually pay $200–300 a month for photographs, aerial photographs, and they have their manager go around with a 35mm camera just taking pictures of things. I would like to go out and try. I mean, I don't know what kind of response I'll get. It may die right on the vine. But I'd like to go to some contractors saying, how would you feel about paying $150 or $200 a month for a service where we come out with a video camera and videotape the project monthly? Walk around with your manager, and we can, look specifically at door jams and elevator abutments and footing problems and roof problems. Just climb the roof, go wherever you want us to go. We'll go inside of pipes with a camera. But then I got to thinking even further. Large projects, the general contractor will have to file a monthly progress report with the owner. It's usually 20–30 pages in a notebook, and it includes photos, and it includes the schedule, which is obviously a big piece. It includes the budget, okay? I thought, wouldn't it be nifty? I mean, those are the major components, the photographs, the budget, the schedule, and a narrative. Why couldn't the narrative be done with the manager doing as I am, just standing here talking and saying, well, this month we had 3 problems. He can cover a lot of material on this tape rather than typing it all out. Secondly, as he talks, I can then come back to the office, having first taken some visual shots in the field and having also listened to his narrative. I can then edit the two together, so while he's talking, you'll hear his voice and actually be seeing what he's talking about, bring it back together again. And then also, when it gets to the budgets, instead of having sheets of paper, we can just turn the camera right onto the computer screen, and we can talk through and show them the curves and show them what our problems are and our projections. And all of a sudden, it's all the value of the graphics that are on the computer showing up in this film. And that would make for a very interesting presentation that could be given to the owner on a tape, which he could then play in his boardroom with his board of directors sitting around, and they could all sit there once a month and get a real sense of where the job is instead of this little manual thing. I think it could work. There's a lot of problems with it, I could see, and you'd have to almost do one and do it very, very well and very conveniently for your contractor client to be able to sell it. But if you could, man, maybe you could make some business with it. Anyway, those are the things I'm saying. They're ideas, but you don't know until you go out and do them. And I'm still interested in going out and doing things. I haven't given up on any of that, but gosh, that's next week. Right now, I just want to look through the end of this week. So, let me see what else I should talk to you about. sorry. My head's gone blank. Alright. I also wanted to film the store. I wanted to go around and film the store. I suspect that after today it'll start coming down. It's not going to be here. It was a good looking store. It really was. What a shame, huh? Isn't it a shame? Okay, let's take a look. This is looking in the front door. This is actually coming in the front door. There we are.
Where your greatest fears and deepest secrets are exposed.
This is the poster area. We had
Fallen into the hands of the opposing force.
put a lot of tapes up here for sale. Posters there.
I can't lay down and die. I won't.
Opposing force, for them, civilization.
Well, these were the titles. These were the titles at the time that we wrapped things up. Alright.
No heroes ever have been more courageous.
There's one of the speakers there on the floor.
Max, shoot it!
They used up all the wall space for advertising. Right there.
More optimistic. We keep sticking our necks out, sooner or later somebody's gonna chop our heads off. But Max Donegan.
And this is the Soul Man Standy. That's a life-size Standy right there. There you go. All the spotlights. I have them off because the spotlights are wired to the open sign. I don't want to do that. Here's our open sign right there.
Dangerous curiosity.
I got priests were supposed to be teetotalers.
I thought nuns were supposed to be virgins. But Leo and
There
Max
you go.
have foiled countless encounters
Put
with
$200 on that neon sign. Here's the other table. This is the table we cut in half, Dad. Got to return that gum machine. Got a little door charm there. I think gave me all sorts of troubles too.
And now, with the support we've lined up for the video premiere of
Alright, let's look back a moment now. Now this is our comedy section.
the in-store action we just
All that wall there.
remains the toughest man in the business.
This is all comedy all through here. This is all comedy all the way through here, all of those.
Ireland.
That would never hurt me.
And Ghostbusters.
Bronson. Assassination.
You should have caught the damn ball.
I knew it! The Best of Times, starring Robin Williams and Kurt Russell.
Lady and Sal.
Play the game again.
Check out the selection here, guys. Comedy. Best of Friends, Benny Hill, Dan Aykroyd.
Jack, you can't play that game again. You know it's sure.
Comic Relief.
Let's play some football. I am
Best
throwing down the
defense.
gauntlet.
If you play that game, you must be making us stupid.
We accept the challenge. What kind of offense will Tap run? Offense?
Coca-Cola Kid, Compromise.
Look at all that phony virile pseudo.
He took the idea. He saw it right on the tree. He plucked it and he put it in his pocket. It's, dare I say, genius? No, but maybe who?
Thank you, Steve.
Maybe I'm in the presence of greatness.
Columbia Pictures presents Steve Martin, Daryl Hannah in Roxanne, coming next summer.
Here is drama. All through this middle section here. Next to good old Alfred. all my dramas. Takes us to our Lionel Richie, Dancing on the Ceiling. That's his last song, Dancing on the Ceiling. There's that entertainment area. Susie always played with Mickey Mouse. She'll remember this on a tape one day. I always used to hide it from her. She'd come find it. Automatic focus is pretty nice, but you got to stay put on something before it will catch it. That's the children's area. This, by the way, is Robin Williams in his first dramatic role. And dramatic he is. Switch for a college education, huh? Just back to school. What you're listening to on TV is a trailer tape that I put together of all, the different big hits around here. Help sell it. Over here, looking across the aisle, is our musicals, our popcorn concession. There you go. Anyway, these are those musicals you were just looking at. And we had some nice looking accessories over here. Blank tapes and the like. Action adventures. Of course, over here, at the top, now we get into
from acclaimed novelist Elmore Leonard's gripping bestseller,
martial arts.
In the next 2 days, they'll have an adventure of a lifetime.
The children's area.
But they may or may not survive. They're going to be kidnapped.
All the little details. Remember all the time I spent up in there wiring that stupid thing.
Where'd you look?
They won't eat you out of professional courtesy.
Yeah.
This is the last
Alright, there's old Mickey.
Lost in the jungle. Busted out of jail. Stoned. And cursed. Roger and Hugh. Their marriage never had a prayer.
Customer, yeah.
It's going to take a miracle to save their divorce.
I think they have to hang